Hello, hello, everyone, and welcome to our 2021 Prime Day panel. We have a really awesome panel of experts here today to chat all things Prime Day, and so we are really excited to get into it. So that being said, let's first hop into some logistics. The first is that the recording and slides will be sent out tomorrow, and so if you had a colleague who wasn't able to tune in, or if you can't stay the whole time, no worries, that'll all be sent out tomorrow. Also, if you do have to log off during the session, you can log back in using the same link. Also, we have some resources loaded in the handout section, so be sure to download those. There's some reports and really important insights there. Also, we will have a live Q&A with our panel at the end after their discussion, and so make sure to get your questions in for our Q&A so that we can queue them up to be answered. We'll also have some poll questions during the session, so make sure to respond to those. And want to introduce myself. My name is Carrie Mallett. I'm the webinar at Tinuiti, and I'll be hosting today's session. So first, a little bit about Tinuiti. With over $2 billion in digital media under management and over 700 employees, Tinuiti is the largest independent performance marketing firm across what we call the triopoly: Google, Facebook, and Amazon. We also offer many other service lines such as Walmart advertising, Instacart advertising, email marketing services, paid social media, and paid search. At Tinuiti, we understand that success requires both strategy and channel specialization. That approach wins us awards and recognition across the industry, such as the American Business Stevie Awards and the Shorty Awards, and allows us to grow some amazing clients like those that you see here. So I will now turn it over to our panelists to introduce themselves. So Megan, take it away.
Thanks, Carrie. Thanks, everyone, for joining us today. My name is Megan O'Keefe. I have the pleasure of moderating today's webinar. I'm one of the senior managers on the marketplaces team at Tinuiti. I manage some account managers and team strategists who work across a variety of sellers and help them deliver best-in-class Amazon advertising strategy. I'm happy to be joined today by these panelists, and I'll pass it over to my colleague, Ben, to do an introduction.
Thanks, Megan. I'm Ben Gemko. I'm actually one of the team strategists that Megan manages over here at Tinuiti. I'll be speaking about some fun Prime Day stuff on behalf of Tinuiti. I'm happy to be here. I'll pass it to Chad.
Hi, everybody. Chad Rubin, co-founder of Stubana before Stubana, and still currently run a e-commerce business called Think Crucial, where we manufacture and sell home appliance parts. Also was on the board of Prosper Show before we were acquired. Excited to be here and give people actionable tips during Prime Day.
Great, and I'm Colleen Quattlebaum, and I'm a marketing manager at Ecom Engine. So I've been in the e-commerce field for about 10 years now, and our most probably common tool that people have heard of is Feedback 5, and we also have a few other tools, Restock Pro and Market Scout, to help Amazon sellers automate certain parts of their business. And last but not least, Pratik.
Hey guys, I'm super thrilled to be here today. You know, a big thank you to all of the attendees who are tuning in. And I'm Pat, Customer Success Manager at Datahawk. We're an e-commerce business management platform, headquartered in Paris. I manage the company's key accounts. Look, Megan, I'm really bad at giving short and simple answers. So if I start to go overboard, just stop me. Yeah, keep me on track.
You got it.
Yeah, well, we're really excited to have you all. Thank you again for joining. So before we jump into our panel discussion, I want to kick things off with a poll. So we want to hear from our audience, what would you say are your priorities heading into Prime Day? And you can select as many that apply to you. So are your priorities gaining visibility to new customers with advertising, increasing trust on your products with positive reviews, optimizing your SEO to increase organic visibility, or perhaps ensuring fulfillment methods are optimized? So I'll give everyone a minute or two to get their responses in. And again, it is a select all. So if you have multiple priorities, you can feel free to let us know. All right, and we will close the poll and take a quick look at results. So overwhelmingly, everyone wants to gain the visibility to new customers, and advertising makes sense just based on the nature of Prime Day. And then also really solid across the board of optimizing SEO, increasing trust, and ensuring fulfillment methods are optimized. So we will definitely be getting into all of these with our panel. So I will now go off screen and allow Megan to take it over as our moderator.
Thanks, Carrie. Great. So I think the burning question right now from our audience is, when is Prime Day going to be? And while we still don't have an official date, I think the industry is leaning towards the end of June. So with that, we could be less than a month away. We're past some of the key deadlines as far as Prime Day goes for submitting lightning deals and Prime member promotions. We have the coupon deadline submission tomorrow, May 28th. The FBA inventory cutoff date is coming up for sellers. So we know that Prime Day impacts every part of your business: visibility, reviews, fulfillment, and hopefully by the end of today, you'll have a better understanding of how you can be perfectly aligned going into Prime Day. So let's get started with, as we head into Prime Day, we know there's going to be a significant increase in browsing that's happening once the dates are announced. So Colleen, first question for you: while we're still a few weeks out from Prime Day, what should sellers be doing now to prepare for Prime Day?
Sure, good question. So there is still time to make an impact. Take a look at your listings, make sure that they're optimized, make sure that your images highlight how awesome your products are. Even take a look at your listings on a mobile device and see how they look there. See if there's anything you can do to improve that buyer shopping experience, to clarify things. Take a look at questions that are on your listing, answer any of those customer questions to clarify those. And if you're a seller enrolled in Amazon's brand registry program, make sure your A+ content also includes detailed product descriptions and great images. All of these details will certainly just help make it more powerful and really sell your products when the consumer comes across your page. And it will also help to reduce any potential for negative reviews if your description is not clear, or if questions are not clear to the customer when they're purchasing that item, then it could lead to a negative review. And speaking of reviews, also make sure that you're asking for reviews now on products that you're selling now, so that in the next few weeks, you'll receive more reviews and have very fresh, recent reviews on Prime Day.
Great. Thanks, Colleen. Anything additional to add there from the other panelists as we head into the holiday?
I don't know if you mentioned this, Colleen, but maybe it's going to potentially reduce the number of returns as well. Because if you have the right listings, all the information that's going to, maybe you touched on that, I don't remember.
Right, good point.
Yeah, and Pratt, next question for you. For any seller, how important is SEO for a successful Prime Day? I know Colleen talked a lot about optimizing listings and making sure that it was optimized on mobile as well, A+ content, but how important is that SEO for a successful Prime Day? And can you mention any specific steps sellers can take to improve their organic visibility ahead of the holiday?
Yeah, absolutely. Good question there. So, I mean, look, brass tacks, you're going to sell only if you're visible. If you're not visible, you're not going to sell, right? And one way to get visibility is by way of running ads. But ads cost money, and they cost a whole lot more on Prime Day. Like CPC bids are 80% higher, right? And because it's Prime Day, you're already running, let's say, promotions and deals and things like that. As a result, your margins are already pretty squeezed. Right, and look, not to mention, in search results on Amazon, there's between like 12 to 16 sponsored slots. I'm talking about sponsored product ads, not display and brand ads. And there's 48 organic results, meaning 3 to 4x more visibility organically. So when you factor in both of these things, that you don't incur that incremental cost that comes with advertising, and there's 3 to 4x more visibility organically, SEO just becomes a no-brainer. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's just that much more compelling. Yeah, in terms of steps, I'm going to sound a little bit corny here, but I like to think of it in terms of the art element and the science element. The art element is the sugar and spice and everything nice, the images that and the A+ content that Colleen talked about, right? I mean, yeah, and there's so much more available on that online, and Colleen mentioned that, so I'm not going to touch on that. Let's talk about the science element. And when I say science, I'm referring to keywords. I call it a science because it requires analysis and research and optimization. continual optimization, right? Because the first question you want to answer is, which are the relevant search terms for my products, right? You want to, and then, you want to find these search terms either through brand analytics or search terms reports, through keyword research tools, things like that. And then you want to do analysis. You want to figure out how your products are ranking for those search terms, right? And the first question is, are they ranking? And then which of the products are ranking? And then where are they ranking? Are they ranking on page 1 or pages 2, 3, 4, and 5? And if on page 1, where on that page? Top of the page, bottom of the page, middle of the page? Because products on Amazon, they follow something called a Zipf's law, meaning the number 1 product gets, let's say, X number of clicks. The number 2 ranked product gets, half of the number 1 guy, and so on. The number 3 guy, 1/3. So yeah, you got to establish the baseline, and then look, brass tacks, what's the goal of SEO optimization? Essentially show up high organically in search results, right? So instead of, if you remember, Zuckerberg had said, don't be too proud to copy. And if Zuckerberg can, is okay with, is not above copying, I think you and I can do that, right? So instead of reinventing the wheel, look at the guys which are already showing up organically high on, in search results, and look at their tactics. Which keywords are they using? How many times and where? Emulate them.
Got it.
I'm gonna piggyback on that for a sec. So Amazon launched a sponsored product impression share report. It's in beta in Seller Central, and I think everybody who's going into Prime Day should be taking a look at it, because you can understand the market size and where you're maybe not serving the market and getting further penetration. And so for me, I'm looking at that report, I'm thinking about, okay, I don't know if I necessarily want to increase my bids, but maybe I want to increase my budget, and for specific strategic products, I want to increase my bids because I have more margin to play with. And so I think that's a great nugget for those that are listening right now.
Good point.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Utilizing all of the reports available to you, and impression share is definitely a newer one, but very good call out, Chad, in regards to that report. So while we're on the topic of advertising and impression share, Ben, how should you best prepare for Prime Day with your advertising efforts?
Yeah, so there's a million ways you can, but some of my personal important notes are, first and foremost, make sure you have enough inventory for your promoted products and your best sellers ahead of time. Whether you have promotions or not, making sure you have inventory is perfect. If you're gonna, you don't want to go out of stock Prime Day. That's worst case scenario. I guess it's a good thing because you're selling out, but you want to have enough to keep going throughout the 2 Prime Day days. Second of all, understand what your historical performance is over the previous Prime Days. If you notice that maybe you're not, the best player in a certain category from previous experience, that's a really good indicator that maybe you should look to a different category to perform. Just understanding your historical performance is super important. If you don't have historical performance, just be ready to be competitive. Just increase your keyword bids, increase your campaign budgets, that is. Just make sure you're competitive, you're ready to be competitive, and just get yourself out there. And really, that's the main goal for all brands who have promotions or who don't. Just be ready to be competitive. Another one is, throughout the day, make sure that you're checking on your campaigns, making sure none of your campaigns are capped by budget. That's another bad thing to happen on Prime Day. A lot of times what I'll do is I'll increase my campaign budget caps by 50%. Throughout the day, I'll be checking maybe 3, 4, 5 times just to make sure that all of my campaign budgets are still available and running. If you get capped on budget, you're not going to serve. So that's the last thing you want. So those are a few things how I think people could be best prepared at a very high level.
Got it. And then in regards to inventory, I know Ben mentioned that going out of stock is going to be detrimental to your Prime Day experience. Chad, do you have anything to add there in regards to what is the most critical priorities of inventory management going into Prime Day, and why is running out of stock so detrimental on Amazon?
Well, first, I think having inventory is just table stakes right now. I know on the vendor central side, I think the cutoff was May 20th, I think, for purchase orders. And then for sellers, I believe the cutoff is May 31st.
Yeah.
So I think that should be of utmost priority right now. Make sure you're fully stocked. I mean, the whole thing about Prime Day for me is about buying the buyer, right? You want to make sure you have enough stock to support all the new eyeballs that your listing could be getting impression share on. And so if you're not FBA, you're just not relevant, really. And so to make sure that you're properly stocked, I think going back and looking at historicals is important. There's rumor that there's going to be actually 2 Prime Days this year. There was one that was announced in the quarterly call of the second quarter, and then one that's announced, I think, in October. That'll conflict maybe with like Black Friday, Cyber Monday. But anyway, I think just having enough product that's there to support the amount of eyeballs that are going to happen. And a lot of people just like window shop a week leading to Prime Day and then pull the trigger. So yeah, so the implications is just that you're not relevant, right? And essentially you're going to lose share to competitors, and they can essentially decrease their BSR, their bestseller rank, and they can get higher prioritization in the search engine framework.
Got it. Yeah. So really good conversation, guys, heading into Prime Day. What I'm hearing is content is going to be really important heading into Prime Day, making sure your content is optimized, looking at historical data and competitive data, using the impression share report to understand where you are as far as impression share heading into the holiday, and then having enough inventory and paying attention to those inventory cutoff dates. As Chad mentioned, there's going to be a lot of window shopping happening, and if you're not appearing, you're not relevant. So cool. Well, I think we covered a lot of heading into Prime Day, but obviously the 2 days of Prime Day are very important as well. So during Prime Day, we're going to see that increase in traffic. We're going to see those conversions happening. Is there anything, Chad, sellers can do to optimize their fulfillment during that time? And how will the new rules of seller fulfilled Prime delivery affect seller shipping times?
Yeah, so I'll approach the new seller fulfilled Prime rules. They're pretty hard and they're kind of harsh. I don't know many sellers that are going to want to have employees working, because like now they change it from business days to calendar days to ship. And essentially that means that you are likely going to need to have people over working the weekends if you get an order, say, that comes in on a Friday late afternoon. And so they've changed it from also you can't be regional any longer, from what I understand. So look, Amazon is changing the rule book yet again and making it more difficult and making it for only the strong to survive. And you need to make sure that if you're doing seller-fulfilled Prime, that you're abiding by the new rules. And if you're trying to get SFP now, I don't think you can. I think it's closed for now. But that's as far as I know, what I know about the SFP program. Anybody else have anything else to share? No.
Yeah, I think you're on track there. I think it is closed right now. So cool. So in addition to just the fulfillment methods, obviously monitoring campaigns, Ben, you said, is going to be crucial. Advertising is driving that consideration and sales. So can you talk a little bit more about advertising during the Prime Day holiday?
Yeah, absolutely. So, we have customers who've connected the advertising accounts to DataHawk, right? So we were looking at last year's actual, ad spend data, and we noticed that ad spend on Prime Day or Prime Days went up by, 150%. And you must be thinking, okay, if ad spends 150% higher, it basically means that, and the number of sponsored slots is the same, right? So everyone's gunning for the same slots. That means ACoS is going to be high. But here's a silver lining. So we looked at sponsored product ads data, and ACoS was actually 10% lower. Why? Because conversions went up. Conversion rates were 17% higher, right? So sponsored product ads is a good place to put your money on, on Prime Day. And then also, in fact, sponsored display is better, because for sponsored display, the ACoS went down 40%. So another good place to, put your money in. And I think somebody mentioned that, I think it was Chad, that on Prime Day, a lot of shoppers, they're just browsing Amazon. They're nowhere near, the bottom of the funnel, and they have no purchase, intent. They're just browsing, and they're searching with, search terms like best deals on Amazon and things like that. So maybe take words like best deals and Amazon and product and put them in negative targeting, because you don't want to be wasting your ad dollars on those search terms, right? Because they're just browsing. Secondly, I would recommend that maybe take some of the terms that are doing well for you, through your search terms reports and your existing campaigns, and start running exact match campaigns if you've got a budget constraint. Another data point we looked at was between day 5 and day 3 preceding Prime Day, brands and sellers, the both of them, they reduce the ad spend significantly, meaning less demand for sponsored slots. If there's less demand, it means CPC is going to be low. So if you don't have stellar, let's say, organic visibility, that might be a good time for you to engage in advertising, because CPC bids are going to be low, so you're going to be paying less for that visibility, and boost your organic visibility, because as you probably know, there's a strong link between advertising and boosting organic visibility. So yeah.
Got it. Yeah, I definitely agree with all of those pieces. Like ad spend's 150% higher. Geez, and then we know Amazon had said Prime Day 2020 was a record-breaking event with, like, I think $3.5 billion in sales. So a lot of shoppers going to be coming, a lot of eyes. So definitely thinking of that negative targeting as well. Don't want to be wasting dollars on such broad terms like best deals on Amazon, etc. Ben, do you have anything additional to add in regards to the advertising piece? Do you think we'll see a lot of video and sponsor brands during Prime Day? How important are those ad units going to be during the holiday?
100%. I think Brad said perfectly. I couldn't agree more. But yeah, one thing to add is sponsor brand video and sponsor brand custom image for sure. Both of those two types of sponsor brands are going to be vital to winning real estate, as well as drawing in attention. Sponsor brands are great, but if you can add that element of video, or if you can add that element of custom image, that really attracts the customer's eye, especially if they're on mobile. Depending on your brand, you may have like 80% of your customer base may be mobile. That's also something to look into. Make sure you figure out what your splits are, desktop versus mobile. If you have a huge percent on mobile, then it's going to be vital for you to use sponsor brand video and sponsor brand custom image, because those just eat up like the whole screen. So those are definitely huge plays here.
Yeah. Can you add anything additional, and this is for anybody, about how important Amazon stores are as well heading into Prime Day?
I could touch a little bit on that maybe, because if you're engaging in off Amazon advertising, because the A9 algorithm, or as I think the next iteration of that is the A10, it sort of rewards you for bringing in off Amazon traffic. So if you're let's say advertising off Amazon, and if you've got like a stellar brand store, instead of maybe redirecting people to your exact pages, like product pages, you can redirect them to your Amazon store on Amazon, right? So maybe that's something you can try.
Yeah, so if you're going to run a headline ad and you drive it to your storefront, I would suggest changing the banner on your storefront to be like whatever Prime Day hottest deals. This way, it's just like very specific to Prime Day, and you can just get people interested in the deals that you're running. If you are running
another way you could do that is you could just set up a page, I believe, like one of your tabs on your store, and just have it specifically dedicated to Prime Day deals, and then have that be the landing page. Because for most sponsor brands, you can pick which landing page you want. That's the page I would lead to.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned something important too, Pratt, is not just focusing on driving traffic on Amazon, but the off Amazon traffic as well, and using Amazon attribution to drive customers back to your page is going to be super important. So as you are thinking about those other channels where you have audiences, can you drive them back to your Amazon store during the Prime Day holiday? Great. Well, I think we've touched on before Prime Day, touched on during Prime Day. We're going to see ad spend increase, making sure that you're monitoring your campaigns throughout the day when it comes to advertising, focusing on exact match campaigns, negative keywords, making sure your Amazon store is set up to deliver that customer experience where they can see your deals that you have running. Heading into a conversation now post Prime Day. How do we how do sellers sustain that engagement with shoppers after Prime Day? And Colleen, I'm going to point this next question at you. What impact does Prime Day have on reviews, and what is the most effective way to request reviews?
Yeah, good question. And I think you're exactly right that sellers need to be prepared to keep that momentum going long after Prime Day and set yourself up for success in Q4. So the sales that you're making on Prime Day, making sure that you have enough inventory post Prime Day. So when word gets out that somebody bought some new air fryer and how awesome it is, and their neighbors want to buy it, that you still have some in stock for other people to buy. But when it comes to reviews, you only have 30 days to request reviews. From the date that the order is delivered. And so that's not a very long window. While yes, buyers can leave a review at any time, you can only request a review as a seller in that first 30 days post it being delivered. So make sure that you have a strategy in place that you're requesting reviews. Nearly 80% of reviews are left after a shopper receives an email asking for a review. And just the increase in Prime Day orders is a great opportunity for you to increase your reviews overall. Last year, the data that we saw in Feedback 5, which is our review and feedback tool, we found that in that week after Prime Day in 2020, there was a 32% increase in positive reviews. So again, it's just a great opportunity to increase reviews. And if you think of Prime Day, it's different than in Q4 or the holidays, where at the holidays, at Christmas or people are buying gifts for other people, so they're not necessarily the one that's going to use the item and leave the review, or they might be buying the item in October but not giving it as a gift for 2 or 3 months later. Whereas Prime Day, many people are purchasing items for their self or their own household, and they're using them right away. So just build on that excitement. They're more motivated because they got great deals. They're more motivated to leave reviews. So just make sure that you're asking for reviews and that you have a system in place. And as far as, what's the most safe or effective way to ask for reviews, the request a review button in Seller Central on the order details page is the safest way to ask for reviews because that's a message that comes directly from Amazon, so you can ensure it's 100% compliant. It's also very mobile friendly, and it's been optimized to get great results. However, it's a very manual process to do that in Seller Central, especially when you have a lot of orders. So make sure that you look into using a tool. Feedback 5 is our tool, but obviously find one in the Amazon App Store that's approved by Amazon. So just make sure you have an automation in place to request those reviews, because sellers have a million other things to worry about than clicking that review button. But yeah, so again, just it's a great opportunity to get reviews post Prime Day and set yourself up for Q4.
Can I add something there?
Sure, please.
Colleen, so I used to work at a retailer, prior to joining DataHawk, and one of the things we used to do when requesting reviews is we used to add a line saying, if you had a less than stellar experience, instead of leaving us a negative review, give us a chance to provide recourse. And so I think that can also be a good way to sort of reduce the number of negative feedback you get, because it's so much more difficult once you get that negative to turn, to have that removed or to turn that into a positive is way more difficult than just sending that, one line in that email and avoiding that, to begin with. What do you think?
So you do have to be very careful with that type of language. Amazon is pretty clear in their guidelines that they want you to be as neutral as possible. Now, many sellers do that and have gotten away with it, but I also know that some have been suspended or restricted, I should say, for that. So just be very careful if you're using buyer-seller messaging. Certainly you can customize that more than you could request a review message, but you do have to be very careful, because if anyone at Amazon sees it as you're, pushing positive reviews to Amazon and negative experiences back to you, then you could be putting yourself in a position for restriction. So just be careful with that.
Thanks, Colleen.
Sure.
And then as far as leading out for advertising, then what are the advertising tactics that sellers should be leveraging off of Prime Day success?
Yeah, so this is going after Prime Day is over?
Yes.
Yeah, so after Prime Day, just kind of revert your entire account back to normal. But that's the simplest way. But because there's so much of an influx of traffic, you want to make sure that you're retargeting to them. So I would utilize a strategy of using both DSP as well as sponsored display. Both are going to reach out to those customers who have looked at your brand, who may be in the same arena. There's just a giant pool of customers waiting for you to kind of advertise to them. So that's the biggest thing that I would say, to go after those customers right after Prime Day, just taking advantage of that pool. Those are the best two ways to do it.
Yeah, I think there's also an opportunity there to engage new to brand customers as well. So customers that you brought into the funnel, those new to brand customers, maybe there's a cross-sell opportunity there as well.
I have a question for Ben. Yeah. So you know, when you're just running ads like a regular sponsored product ad, you have a specific, let's say, cost per sale, you know, advertising cost of sale. But when you're retargeting, you know, is your cost per sale higher, generally speaking, compared to a regular sponsored product ads?
Yeah, so sponsored product ads are always going to be the most efficient ad tactic. So when you're going after sponsored display, you have to just know right away that this is not going to be as efficient as what I would typically run. It's kind of the same mentality when you're going after sponsored brands too. It's just such a high traffic spot, highly competitive spot. But for sponsored display and DSP, you have to figure out what you're comfortable with as a goal and go from there. So as long as you just know, like, okay, I'm going to go retarget people who are in the category, who have seen my product, but haven't directly interacted with me, those people have a small chance of converting, but it's worth reaching out to them. The people who have clicked on your product and, you know, were taken away because maybe a competitor scooped them up and, you know, the carousel underneath the product listing or some other sponsored display or DSP tactic of their own, those are going to be a little bit more easy than going after the category to take over. So all in all, sponsored display DSP is going to be less efficient than your typical sponsored product targeting, but it's definitely worth it. So just going into it, just know that it's not going to be as efficient, but it's worth it.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
It's part of that full funnel strategy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, Chad, did you have anything
Yeah,
additional?
I was just going to share, you know, as we're talking about like ACOS, if you're selling a subscription product and you're doing like subscribe and save, whether a vendor or a seller, a lot of people just look at the ACOS, but you have to also think about the lifetime value of what you're going to be getting on the subscription
100%.
products. So actually, there may be even more room for you to spend to acquire those customers and to convert them into a brand supporter for you, right, with a high NPS score. So I'm just saying, if you're dialed in right now and you have a subscription product and you don't want to just like create a waxing ACOS or just increase your budget 50% or 100%, and you can actually be very profitable by going like really to the wall on some advertising for the subscription product, and you can get that recurring revenue back, I would just go ahead and do it.
Excellent point. Yeah.
To kind of jump on that too, if you don't mind, that's another way that DSP can help you grow. Is if you're just going out, if you only look at your account in terms of ACOS and you're like, okay, I can only hit this level, you have to also look at, you know, what's the actual value that I'm trying to go after here. The value of a new customer of that giant Prime Day pool is far more important than, you know, spending $100 at a 100% ACOS, in my opinion. Like the lifetime, like you just said, Chad, the lifetime value of that, you know, new subscriber or that new customer in general is way more valuable. And Prime Day is a great way to kind of jumpstart that because you have this giant pool of new customers to take advantage of. So
Yeah, I think something maybe we forgot to mention at the beginning too that's really important is just defining like what your goal is for Prime Day. What are you looking to accomplish with Prime Day? So I love all of the conversationing happening there. Cool. Well, I think one more question just to close us out before we head into the QA is what I would love to hear from all of you. What are some of the most important lessons learned from Prime Day?
I'd say just make sure you have enough inventory, not just to sort of, cater to the demand spike you're going to experience on Prime Day, but even after, right? Because once you sell so much on Prime Day, Amazon's going to boost your organic visibility, right? Because there's a very strong correlation between sales velocity and your organic ranks. So basically, even after Prime Day, a lot of shoppers are going to be seeing your products, right? So make sure you have enough inventory to service that demand after Prime Day to just benefit from that momentum.
Yeah, there's no question that keeping product in stock is super important. I think what's happening is that there's this convergence of sellers or brands becoming advertisers or trying to become advertisers, which is sort of why Tinuiti exists, right? Because like you guys take the hard work out of it, and so firstly, it's going through that impression share report, that search term report from sponsored brand, the sponsored product search term report, impression share report, which will tell you how much impression share you're getting for a specific keyword. And then if you look at your margins comparatively to that, you can actually like increase your budget without maybe not increasing bids or maybe increasing bids based on your margin. I think that's super important. But going back to, I think it was Colleen, but someone on the call said, knowing what and maybe it was Megan, what your intention is behind Prime Day. And you don't need to have an intention that's global for your business, but you could have a different intention. For example, a new product launch, your intention would be like, hey, I just want to get eyeballs. I want people to buy this thing because I want to get more reviews. Or a mature product in its product life cycle, it might be, I just want to get my BSR back because I lost it a long time ago. And so I think segmenting your product catalog based on your intention behind it is going to be really, really valuable and goes into the preparation. I think now is the perfect time to do it because we're like a month out, and you can really start segmenting where you want to spend the calories of your money and your thoughts towards your product catalog.
Good points. Yep.
That's all I got.
All good points.
For me, I think the biggest thing that I've learned over the years of participating in Prime Day, both personally and professionally, is be competitive. Just understand, kind of like what you just said, is what are your goals? What are you trying to do here? Like, be ready to set aside a certain amount of your monthly budget for those 2 days of Prime Day, but also realize that Prime Day kind of starts a month before. You should start like trying to target these people beforehand, get your brand out there, then go hard on Prime Day, the actual 2 days of it, then after retarget that pool. So it could be like a whole 2 months of a user base that you've never interacted with before. So be ready to be competitive, understand what you can do, because even if you don't have any promotions or anything, you can still be competitive, you can still participate. The influx of traffic in Amazon is great during these 2 days. So just because you don't have promotions doesn't mean you can't participate. Just be competitive.
And as Chad mentioned earlier, it's likely there could be a Prime Day in fourth quarter in October again. So just if you missed the boat on lightning deals or anything this time around, learn from this one and be prepared for the next one.
Got it. I appreciate all of that feedback, guys, and I think the audience does as well. So inventory, definitely very important. Want to make sure that we have it planned for after Prime Day too, to benefit from the momentum. Using the impression share report for keyword and looking at your margins there to identify where do you have room to push more. As Ben said, being competitive, and Chad said, understanding what your goals are for going into the holidays. So is it a new product launch, or is it you want to get your bestseller ranking back, or do you want more new to brand customers? Really, what is the goal going into the holiday? All really great things. So I think we have some time left for a live Q&A, unless there's any other last thoughts before we hand it back to the audience. Cool. Carrie, welcome back.
Awesome. What a great conversation about all things Prime Day. I know I learn every time you all speak and definitely learned a lot as well. Awesome. So as we get the deck back up, before we dive into our Q&A, we've had some incredible questions come in from our audience members. We are going to launch our next poll. So after hearing from all of our Amazon experts, if you're interested in scheduling a strategy session, whether it is to figure out what it should be your last minute thing for this Prime Day, or perhaps in order to prepare for next year's Prime Day and overall Amazon strategy, please let us know what you're interested in. So you can let us know if you're interested in having a strategy session with any of our partners on today, so whether that's Tinuiti, Ecom Engine, DataHawk, or Skubana. So I'll leave that up for another week or two. And if you've gotten your response in, but you have not yet submitted a question for a Q&A, you still have time to do so. All right, so I've got another moment or two so that everyone can get the answers in, and then we'll launch into our Q&A, and our audience has been asking some great questions and very in-depth questions. All right, so thank you everyone, and we'll kick it off with our Q&A. So our first question comes from Melissa. So Melissa was wondering, how soon before Prime Day should we increase bids and budgets to gain the velocity needed for Prime Day success?
I can take that one, and please feel free to jump in here, anybody else. But I think you should really start thinking about your budget and increasing bids now. So I'd say the sweet spot is about 2 weeks out ahead of Prime Day. Once they announce Prime Day, the traffic, you'll definitely start to see the lead up to Prime Day of that browsing behavior happening, people starting to basket build. So the competition is definitely going to start to increase across the board.
All right, and then the next question comes from Charlene. So Charlene is wondering, what suggestions do you have for sellers who are general resellers in a category and are not a brand owner? So again, this is for general resellers.
Yeah, that's a hard one. I would probably just I think if you do sponsor ads as a reseller in a listing, I think does Amazon automatically give you the buy box for that specific listing? I'm not so familiar with the reseller model. Okay. Anybody else on the call have any thoughts?
I am not sure, so we might have to just check that after. Sorry about that, chat. All right, so we can go to the next question, and I know my audio is being a little funky, so my apologies, everyone. Okay, so our next question comes from Joe. So Joe is wondering, how does advertising improve organic visibility? What's the relationship between the two?
I think I can answer that. I mean, so I'll give you a real example, okay? So if you have, let's say you sell mattresses, okay? And so maybe a relevant search term for you is queen mattress, yeah? If you search with queen mattress on Amazon, you're gonna notice that 75% of the products that that show up organically in search results on Amazon's page 1 will have at least 500 ratings. Right? Why? Because Amazon's algorithm has learned, which is constantly learning from shoppers' buying behavior, right? That most people, when they type in the word queen mattress, they tend to buy products which have at least 500 ratings. As a result, 75% of the products Amazon's algorithm is showing organically in search results for that one search term, have at least 500 ratings. So if you have a product that, let's say, has only 200 ratings, you're not going to make it to page 1 organically. Why? Because you don't meet that profile. you don't meet, that standard of at least 500 ratings, you'll be sitting on page maybe 2 or page 3. So what you then want to do, and if you're sitting on page 2 or 3, you're not clocking as many sales. So what you want to do then is you want to be running, you're going to advertise that product. And because you're advertising it, you're showing up, on page 1 as a sponsored product for that search term. Now, what's happening is because you're sitting on page 1 as a sponsored product, more people are seeing your product when they type in Queen Mattress, meaning you'll be getting more visits, more sales, and gradually more ratings. And when that happens, over time, you're going to move from, let's say, 200 ratings to 500 ratings at some point of time, right? And then you'll start to move from, let's say, page 3 to 2 to 1 organically, and that's when you can stop, advertising. So that's the link between advertising and boosting organic visibility. You can leverage advertising to boost your organic visibility. I don't know if that answers the question. Yeah.
All right, and to our audience, I know my audio may not be working so well, so my apologies. I am just going to put the questions in the chat for our panelists. And so our next question, if you all can hear me, is can you give us an example on a way to utilize the search term impression report? It has so much data in it. How can we best utilize that data?
Yeah, there's a lot of data in there. I think there's only really a couple important columns. So one is the customer search term. Then is your impression share that you're getting, and then what campaign it is in, and like the match type. And so what I would do is I would say, okay, like where am I not getting impressions where I should be? Then digging further, is it because of bid? Is it because of budget? And then looking at your margins and seeing, okay, Prime Day for this product, I want to maximize exposure because I know that whatever, I have a strong LTV as a brand. And so I would just like be very focused on the data. And for products that maybe you're trying to liquidate, right? Maybe you don't have the budget or you don't have the bids to be able to compete with other people, but maybe that's something that you want to maybe get rid of or liquidate. So using this report, I think is pretty eye-opening to sort through your SKUs. As a brand before Stubana, right, I was mentioning I have Crucial, we have 580 of our own private label SKUs. That's a heck of a lot of SKUs to manage and to get strategic on, but it requires time and analysis to be able to do the work to figure it out, because if you're doing that and others aren't, that's a great way to win in e-commerce, especially on Amazon. So like first mover advantage, right? This report is relatively new. I think it's still in beta. So I think it's a great report that you can be maximizing your time on to yield a high ROI.
Awesome, thank you, Chad. All right, our next question is from Fred. So Fred is asking, I'm launching a new hair care product collection. Is there anything specifically I should focus on to optimize my Prime Day opportunity?
I could touch on that a little bit maybe. So, like I mentioned earlier, you want to, basically if you want to rank high organically in search results, instead of reinventing the wheel, look at the guys which are already ranking high for those kinds of, products on Amazon, right? And look at their listings to see what kind of words they're using, right, on their listings, how many times and where. For example, if it's a hair care product, they could be using, let's say, for dry hair, that combination of that long tail 3 terms, maybe in the second, third, and fourth positions of the title, or in the second bullet point, right? Just look at the top items that show up organically on Amazon, look at their listings, look at the words they're using where, and start emulating their listings, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, I'll take that one step further, Pratik. And I guess we didn't talk much about like listing optimization, and I think looking at competitor listings is very important. I think if we're going to take it one step further, going into the listings of the main those main keywords that you want to rank for, and looking at their negative reviews, because let's be honest, if you have 5,000 reviews and 66% of them are 5-star and then the rest are 4, 3, 2, 1, people are looking at those probably more often, especially 1 and 2. And if you can essentially take those negatives and then bring them into your listing in the photography or in your bullets and use them as ammo, like unlike the competitors, we don't make you lose hair, right? Or unlike the competitors, ours is made in America is a great example. And so I think to use those and turn them into positives is a great strategy.
For anytime I'm launching a new product in general, I will set up auto campaigns per product and have them go. Obviously being careful with budget and all that, but that's one thing I would do for sure for Prime Day. Set each ASIN in its own automatic campaign and just let it go. I would also group them into a sponsored brand campaign, advertise them that way as well, because if it's a new hair care product collection, you want to make sure that you're getting awareness. You're not necessarily concerned about efficiency at this point, I would assume. But going back to our strategy of listing, all of your products on a certain page and then driving your sponsor brand to that store page will really help with awareness as well as just getting your brand out there.
And then Ben, you do the auto campaign because essentially it like buckets all the keywords that are in your listing and you can start looking at those keywords. Is that your perspective?
Kind of. So I like to use auto campaigns for new product launches because one, I don't necessarily care about efficiency at the moment. And auto campaigns are going to be able to get into auctions where I can't think of off the top of my head. So they're going to expand further beyond sponsored products in general, your manual campaigns that is. So it's going to be able to enter you into auctions where the product may be relevant, so that you can't think of. So that's why I like to use them as like a spark plug.
Cool.
Awesome. Lots
I
of
think
good
one more
strategies.
thing, just to add to that sorry, Carrie, one more thing to add to that question is if they're brand registered, utilizing Amazon Posts. So Amazon Post is a free tool that you can basically essentially post organic looking content on Amazon. And I think for a product like hair care, that's a good way to tell your brand story and for customers to connect with it. So utilizing Post for anybody that's brand registered is like a additional great way to gain visibility ahead of the Prime Day holiday.
And Megan, I recently heard of Post. Do you have a good example of a brand that's leveraging Post right now that you can share?
Yeah, so they're actually only on mobile. Right now, I believe they're also still in beta. I could be wrong, but really they're only visible on the mobile app right now and mobile web. So I'm trying to think of a good brand off the top of my head. Ooh. I can't think of a good brand off the top of my head, but I would look at possibly the baby category. So anybody that's any type of like baby toy or something like that. I've seen them using Amazon Posts.
Outdoors categories as well.
Yeah, outdoors categories.
Cool.
They're free and easy, and it's a no-brainer.
All right, so thank you everyone. Lots of great advice. Our last question for the day is going to be about reviews. So the questioner was asking, going off of Colleen, your point about increasing your reviews and sending emails. What are other ways that you can help increase the amount of reviews on your products?
Yeah, so the earlier reviewer program closed down a few months ago. Amazon Vine is a great program to take advantage of if you're part of the brand registry program. Although I have heard mixed reviews about that. It works great for some sellers, others don't see much success. And then also use product inserts in your product. That is allowed, so you are allowed to ask for feedback and reviews with a product insert. Just be careful again to use very neutral language, not if you love this product, leave us a review. If not, call us. That's not allowed. But you can also use product inserts to promote other products from your Amazon store. So if you already have one product that you've launched and you're working on launching another one, then you could certainly create cross promotional purchases that way. You can also get repeat purchases from your inserts. So inserts can be used in many different ways. And of course, deliver important instructions and warranty information and such. So I would say, use inserts to request reviews, just always ask for reviews on every single item that you have. And, consider Amazon Vine. And as everybody said before, just optimize your listings to make sure that you're set up for success for a positive review. But you are pretty limited on what you can do because Amazon does not want you to drive traffic off of Amazon and they have very strict rules and guidelines about requesting reviews. So there are some limitations, really just request a review button using a tool in the Amazon App Store, product requests, or I'm sorry, product inserts, Amazon Vine. Those are the main ways.
Hey, Colleen, somebody was telling me that to get a review from a customer through Amazon's early reviewer program used to cost $60 a review. Is that accurate? And does Vine cost the same, or is it more or less? Any idea?
Vine does not share the cost outwardly on the site in the program, so you have to apply for Amazon Vine and then you'll get the cost. But I understand it's pretty minimal. But yes, early reviewer was pretty inexpensive. I think it was $60 for your first 5 reviews. And yeah, so Amazon Vine though is still available, but you do have to be brand registered. So, but it does not cost much, and it has Vine Voices, which are some of the top reviewers that get access to review your products. And those are some of the more helpful, detailed reviews because they're professional reviewers. So it's great if you can get some Vine Voices to review your products from Amazon Vine. They're usually very, very helpful.
Nice. You know this thing inside out. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, for the sake of time, we unfortunately can't get to all of our audience questions. We had so many amazing questions come in, and thank you for our panelists for answering so many fantastic questions about how to prep for Prime Day. So before we sign off today, I want to remind everyone that for all things privacy, with all of the changes and iOS updates, you can go to tinuiti.com/privacy-forward, which is our landing spot for all updates on privacy. So with that, want to thank everyone again for tuning in. Thank you to our fantastic audience who is incredibly engaged, and thank you to our incredible panelists as well for sharing all their expertise. It was wonderful being with you all this afternoon, and hope everyone has a great rest of their Thursday.
Thank you so much, guys. Great to be here.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. See you.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
all.
Happy
Bye.
Prime Day.
Bye.
Happy Prime.
See you.